Good afternoon and welcome to Bermuda's News and Views. I'm your host, Don Burgess, and with us today is making his first appearance on Bermuda's News and Views, the opposition leader, Mr. Cole Simons. Welcome, Mr. Simons.
Thank you, Don. Thank you for having me.
Great to have you here. Just wanted to ask you a few questions about COVID, the economy, the throne speech, and your vision as for what you see as your vision for the OBA going the way forward. But why don't we start with COVID-19 and get some thoughts on that? I know that last week we had Pfizer announced they had a vaccine, and yesterday Moderna also said they had a vaccine. So do you have some thoughts on COVID-19 in Bermuda and the vaccine?
Well, I'll just talk to it generally. In essence, I believe that COVID-19 is a black swan event which actually reset the dial in regards to the world order. It has caused disruption, and it's caused us to reset the dial, we in Bermuda. It caused us to restructure our finances, our economic roadmaps, our social norms, our cultural norms. In essence, it's changed the way that we live, and the way that we lived previously will become history. So we will have a new norm. From the economic point of view, it's going to require us changing our fiscal policies, our government debt management policies, our civil servant structure to make it more efficient. Banking and financing topic is the immigration policy.
Right.
And pension. On the social side, you see the Minister of Education talk about his restructuring of education and the stress that it places on our students, the remote learning and the in-class learning and the hybrid of the two. That is new to the Bermuda. And so everyone has to readjust, the teachers, the parents, and students in education. Healthcare, we've got the seniors, we have seniors at home, caregivers for people with dementia and Alzheimer's. Again, we have to find a way to manage that differently. Financial assistance, because so many people are laid off, we're going to see that our financial assistance costs exponentially grow. And the same thing will apply to our unemployment benefits. They're going to go over the top because the economy is basically being challenged like it has never been challenged before. On the cultural side, again, social distancing, it impacts how we live our day-to-day lives. You're going to the restaurants, you have to be outside, you have to have space between tables. Going to our churches and our religious activities, again, the way that was done historically, the way it's done by Christian tradition may have to change. Christmas and Easter gatherings, again, we can't have 20 people over anymore. We can't have 30 people over on Christmas Day for drinks. Cop match, look, it canceled cop matches here. Again, another cultural event. And so it's going to change, and it has changed Bermuda's way of living. And it's going to be a path through a dark, dark tunnel before we see the flickering light at the end.
Now, I've seen today the news about Pompano being closed for the next 3 months. How does this add to our economic woes?
Oh, it speaks for itself. It speaks for itself. Tourism is taking a beating everywhere in the world. And so hopefully the management and government is working together to see, and the unions to see how best we can help those employees and also help the hotel. If I remember correctly, the owners of the hotel indicated that it will reopen in March.
Right.
So that's good. At least they have the intention to reopen.
Right. Now, I know after you were sworn in, we had a brief conversation.
Yes.
And I asked you at that point in time, but how you got into politics, and if you want to take us back to those who may not have seen.
Oh, Lord, you're going back in history, way back in history. I got into politics because of the lovable Quentin Edness.
Oh.
In fact, he was close to our family. My father was in his wedding, and he was in my parents' wedding. And so we've had a close family relationship. And in fact, my grandmother was his godmother. So we have been very close. So when I basically was finishing university, whenever there was an election, he would call me and say, "Come out and help me, Cole, come out and help me." I had no plans to be a politician, but it evolved. And here I am today.
Yeah. Prior to you becoming the leader of the OBA, what would you have said was the proudest achievement of your political career?
Oh, that's a very good question. I haven't even entertained that. My proudest achievement. The event that made me feel most proud was when they had the environmental conference here from the oceans at Southampton Princess, where they had members from the United Nations environmental something. They had all the heads of the environmental NGOs and various heads of state. They had come here and presented their case at this conference at Southampton Princess. And it was a vision. And the interesting thing is, I was at an event at BUEI, and they were talking about Davos.
Right.
And I spoke to a gentleman from Axel. I said, well, we should have an environmental Davos here in Bermuda. It could be based around the maritime theme and the general environment. And so I said, we will make it happen. And it happened. I was so proud, like I've never been before in my life.
Yeah.
And that was one of the highlights. The other highlight was to basically have the occasion to be education minister. The education ministry position for me really was a position that went to my soul. It really went to my soul. Actually, to be honest, it encouraged me to run in the 2017 election because I was ready to hang up my boots, quite frankly. But a number of teachers, parents, principals had said to me, "Mr. Simons, you can't go yet. We need you. We need you." And we would really, really encourage you to stay on. And because of the emotional ties that I had to that ministry, I stayed on. And so that was a privilege for me and a moment for me and a period for me that was most exciting and most rewarding, being the Minister of Education. It was not easy, but people put their heart and soul in that, running that ministry and trying to get the best outcomes for students in Bermuda.
Right. How much of a reward is it for you to see students achieving and succeeding from the Bermuda school system?
It's unimaginable. It's unimaginable, especially if they come from challenging backgrounds. Some family situations aren't as conducive as yours or mine when it comes to education. And these students, despite their circumstances, just do their best and exceed because of their focus, their own personal drive and dedication. And those are the people that I believe, really need to be recognized and given full support.
In your vision of the OBA, what do you see as the way forward?
What's the way forward? First of all, we have to make sure that our base is there. Yes, some of our base didn't vote. So I and the chairman of the party will be reaching out branch by branch to the members of the branch, to people who we believe voted for us in the past through various social events, to have chats with them, to listen to them, to see why they didn't turn out this time, and correct our ways. So what we'll do is listen and learn. And we will do that from Sums to St. George's. Mm-hmm. So I have a lot of meetings planned ahead of me.
Now, I know that...
but let me end. Yeah. We had 30 candidates in the last election. I have, in essence, run 6 elections. And this is the first time, immediately after election, 2 weeks after election, those 30 candidates are still in the room. They're still willing to provide service to Bermuda. They're still willing to participate in the roadmap for Bermuda's future. And they're committed to making a contribution wherever they can. And they're all very, very positive about their role and the future of the party.
What, 31 candidates, right?
Yeah. The numbers that ran the last election.
Okay. In the general election was really brutal to party. I know that you just spoke about how you're going to be sitting down with constituents and things, but in your initial impression, what do you think went wrong?
We didn't listen because we really didn't get the message, and we were not aligned with our membership or the country's priorities.
And
I would say, in addition,
yeah.
I think the community expected a lot of us, a lot from the opposition. And I'll be quite frank with you, it's difficult being the opposition of 11 members with no resources.
Right.
And so the MPs really, really have to be very, very entrepreneurial, do their research on the legislation, prepare their statements for issues, draft parliamentary questions, go to public meetings, meet constituents, and then be on the doorstep. And, so something had to fold. So going forward, we will be strengthening our branch network, and we will be providing additional support to our candidates and existing incumbents, whereby they will be able to do continuous canvassing and be better connected to the community and their branches.
You were saying that you weren't listening, though, not you personally, but like the OBA in general. You weren't listening to the constituents. What were some of the things that they were saying prior to the election that wasn't being heard?
Everyone recognized the work that had been done on the COVID and health side. And there were issues on the economic side, which they expected us to make a contribution to and to check the government on. We did our best, and I have to say, and I'll be quite frank, if you go to the parliament the next Saturday, the paper is full of articles by the media, but they're all government statements. They would get the House records, get government statements, and they'll be all throughout the media.
Right.
The MPs on the opposition side would make comments, make their contributions, and yet nothing is printed, nothing is said.
Yeah. Well, I can just say from Bernie's point of view, like if you sent a press release or a statement, they would print it.
No, well, I know that, yes, that I'm talking about the House of Assembly.
Okay.
Picking up articles. I know when I started, we had people in the press box, and they were there judiciously, and they wrote more balanced articles. If the PLP had something to say, the opposition would have a say in it. But right now, I don't see that balance in House reportings, and that's why the constituents are saying, "We don't hear from you guys. You're quiet. You don't say anything." Well, we all say, "Well, why have we been here? We have been doing so much work, but it just was not getting out. Our communications machinery was not adequate enough, quite frankly."
Okay. So
I'm not going to blame the media for everything.
okay.
For the reporting in the House, I believe that they could have done a better job in supporting the opposition.
So I guess the public can then expect over the next 5 years more robust comments and press releases and being out there so they can hear your voice.
Exactly. We're not going to talk and make noise for the sake of it. Not under my leadership. I've told my team that we will be addressing the issues, not the personalities. And I expect every one of you to act like a leader of this country, because the quality of debate, the behavior of some of our ministers is not a good example for the young people that are following us. And so I said to my team again, you are a leader. I expect for you to carry yourself as a leader with dignity and respect. I told them that's the way we will rule in the One Bermuda Alliance.
Now, I know when you were sworn in, I think it was in your statement, you talked about collaboration and helping and more partisanship with what we see happening in the U.S., U.K., and other places around the world. Why do you think this is important?
Because that's what the community wants. And I also believe in collaboration, you get richer results and richer decisions.
Right.
But this collaboration, the underlying principle for it is to ensure that it's done with integrity and honesty, not as a political tool that would inure to the benefit of one party over the other. Okay. I would like for the collaboration to be for the benefit of the country and not just one party over the other.
But yeah, the other thing that you said on that day was you take a strong stand on issues you feel that need to be addressed. How do you feel that this less is more approach will benefit Bermuda, i.e. only sort of sounding the alarm on the most important issues that might draw more attention because people aren't hearing you guys complain about everything, just the things that you feel are at the top?
Can you repeat that again?
Because one of the things you said when you were sworn in was like you believed in collaboration.
Yeah.
But that didn't mean that you were going to just let everything slide. You would take a stand.
Yes.
On the more important issues. And so how do you feel not sounding off on everything, that when you do sound off, people will listen more?
Well, interesting comment, quite frankly. Basically, I'm a very calm person. And when I have to roar, you know I've been agitated. It takes a lot to do that. And so there will be occasion that will happen. It'll be rare, but it will happen. And in some occasions, the decision has to be made by the leader based on the circumstances. And And on that occasion, consensus may not be the best option. But for me, I hope that will be far and few between.
How relevant do you think the OBA in its current standing is to Bermuda? You know, a lot of people sort of like wrote the OBA off.
Well, let me give you, I don't know if you heard what I said in Government House. I've had, since I've been elected as the leader of the opposition, and even before, many Bermudians have come to me and said, Curl, we need a strong opposition. There is such a concentration in power. We are very, very uncomfortable. And these comments come from my staunch PLP friends. You know, I'm the type of person that I got friends all over the place, all over the place. And my PLP friends are at my house all the time. I go to their homes and we talk about politics. We're on the same side, on different sides. But at the end of the day, we speak honestly amongst ourselves. And they have said that to me. One of my friends whom I work with, he's a rabid PLP. And he said, you all need to get yourself together because the government needs checks and balances. That is what's needed for a ripe and rich democracy. And you need to fulfill that role the best that you can.
Okay. The public is still waiting to hear who the deputy leader of the OBA will be. Why is this taking so long? I know you just really changed part of the Constitution with regard to who can be the deputy leader, but is part of the problem that you only have 6 MPs?
It's not part of the problem. We've taken the view, and I've taken the view, that, you know, we have 6 MPs, and we're a close-knit group. And at the end of the day, if I need to have someone deputized, I will have them act in my absence. You know, when you're in cabinet, when the premier goes away, he appoints an acting premier. When the minister of health goes away, the minister of tourism will be acting tourism health minister. When I was minister of environment, I was invariably the acting minister of immigration and acting minister of transportation, more times than I would like, but it worked. And so I don't see a real need to really make that a priority at this point. We have a strong leader as chairman, and we have 2 deputy chairmen, and we all work together. And it seems to be getting off to a great start.
So just to reiterate, you're basically saying, like, at this point in time, there won't be a deputy leader until you see it's necessary to have one.
That's correct.
Okay. In the throne speech, where do you see agreement with the PLP and why? Going back to your collaboration.
Well, I agree with the protocols that they're implementing for the fight against COVID. As you know, that those protocols are international protocols. They're not protocols that are made up here in Bermuda. They are following the World Health Organization protocols, the CDC protocols, and the Pan American Medical Association protocols. And all countries are following the same protocols. So that's where we would definitely support it, because we know that they are following international standards. And the great thing is Bermuda is following along. Bermudians are playing their part and being disciplined and adhering to those protocols. In education, as I was the former Minister of Education, I've worked closely with the current Minister of Education. In addition, as you know, there are many parliamentary subcommittees, public accounts committees. They're made of both opposition members and government members. The CPA committee, there is the House and Grounds committee, and then we have various joint select committees that come up over time through various resolutions and commissions that are required based on current issues of the day. So we work quite a bit collaboratively right now.
And what do you take issue with in the throne speech, in that it's not the right way forward?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think we really have to show some fiscal discipline going forward. I'm thinking of what jumps to mind to me is the Minister of Finance has indicated that he's going to spend about $6 million in capital development.
Right.
And I accept that. But again, will that increase our debt burden? Increase the debt responsibility for the next generation? Have they explored looking at PPPs? In addition, the Minister of Finance indicated that in the 6-month report, that the revenue lines were basically shattered. And I didn't hear him speak to how he was going to expand our revenue base.
All right.
And so to me, it was like, Curtis, come on. Give us some information on how you expect to expand your revenue base. You spoke about how you're managing the expenditure side of the government's operations. But tell us about how are you going to help expand the revenue side. And this is where immigration comes in, quite frankly, because we need to have about 4,000 or 5,000 people in here. And if we have 4,000 or 5,000 people in here, we will have the opportunity to really, really increase our revenue base through taxes. It would help the economy, and it would help employment, and there'll be just new capital on the island that the people of Bermuda can work with.
Now, this year's throne speech was one of the briefest. Were there some issues that you felt weren't addressed that should have been? Not that you necessarily disagreed with what was in it, but it was just not in the throne speech.
My colleague Ben Smith indicated to me that there was very little about youth and sports in particular. There was no mention whatsoever. And for me, I don't remember much being written on the environment.
Okay.
Those are the two things that jump to mind for me.
I guess the other thing, there were mentions about vertical farming and, of course, the digital bank, but it seems like more and more government is, while trying to help out the people, seems to be going into competition against other people who are in those industries, and the banking industry, the farming industry. We've got the Grand Atlantic, for example, the hotel industry. Do you think this is a positive sign or negative, or what are your thoughts?
Well, you hit the nail on its head when it comes to the vertical farming. I would have, in essence, spoken to the farmers of our country to see how we can work together to increase our agricultural yield. I understand that, the vertical farming is very productive and very efficient, but the yield will be substantially more than what we would probably consume, quite frankly.
Oh.
And the question becomes, will it be more economical for Bermuda, for Bermudians, the average man in the street? Because if you've got a $5 million plant for the vertical farming, you have to pay for it. And so don't expect for those fresh, nutritious vegetables or produce come at a discounted price. The only thing that you would have in there are prices that don't include import duties.
Right, paid at Bermudian salaries. So,
That's right.
I believe, if I remember correctly, in the throne speech, it said up to 30 people would be involved in the vertical farming, and I don't know off the top of my head if that also included this the fishing seashore facility as well.
I don't know.
Okay, all right. A half hour has flown by, so
we're having fun.
yeah. So, is there anything that you'd like to say for your final word before we sign off today?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for having me on. And I would like to say to the people of Bermuda, we have accepted our role in the opposition. And I will make a commitment to the people of Bermuda that this will probably be the best opposition you will ever see.
Well, is that a promise?
I'll try my best.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Simons, for being on today with us. Appreciate hearing your thoughts, and I'm sure the Bermuda public do as well, and look forward to a new Bermuda Alliance, One Bermuda Alliance going forward.
Don't give me a call after that DOBA office. I want to talk to you about something unrelated.
Okay, that's fine. And just to reiterate, I did mention after you said it, but the Bird News does print the press releases for both parties as we get them. So there's never been a case where, that I am aware of at least, that we haven't printed one. But
no, I'm not. My only criticism is just reporting from the House.
okay.
As far as politically issued statements, I have no problem with that.
Okay.
Because most of the time when you do a statement or an op-ed, they get printed.
Okay.
But people want to hear you from Parliament. And they said, you jokers up in Parliament are saying nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so demoralizing, quite frankly. It's so demoralizing. We do so much work before and in Parliament. And we hold those MPs to account. In fact, on financial matters, guess who worked with the minister to get his legislation through? Guess who helped the minister with financial matters? The OBA team, because they're the only members in the House that have the experience in financial matters.
Okay.
So when Curtis, when the Minister of Finance puts through financial legislation, he depends on the opposition because the opposition understands that industry. Not many PLP people on the PLP side of the House speak on any financial issues. You just sit back and observe it yourself and watch what happens. It's Curtis himself and us.
Well, I'm sure like our friends on the PLP side will probably disagree with you, but it's worth taking a look at.
Well, the action speaks for itself.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you again.